Hi everybody, Al Gattullo here, and we are back with another edition of the Al Gattullo Craft Beer Video Cast. How's everybody doing? I know it's been a few weeks. There's been a couple up there on YouTube. And today, with the weather turning a little bit colder, we're almost at the end of October, and we're getting into the late fall and soon to be winter months. I wanted to talk a little bit about beers to drink in the wintertime. Stouts and porters are great beers to drink in the wintertime. They're dark, they're really, chocolatey or coffee flavored, or they, oatmeal in them, and honestly, they are really the perfect beer for the wintertime. People say beers are good anytime, but stout and porters are really best enjoyed in the colder months when it gets that little frost hits, the winter munch, a little fire going on in the house, and you decide you want to have something very enjoyable while you're sitting on the couch. A stout or a porter is a perfect beer. Now today we're going to talk about one of my favorites, which happens to be Founders Breakfast Stout. It's a seasonal beer. It's only available from October to December, although you can probably get it after that in stores. But the Founders Breakfast Stout is one of, if not the best stout out there. There are a lot of other stouts that I enjoy. This one happens to be one of my personal favorites. So let's get into stouts. First of all, for those of you who don't know about craft beer, what is craft beer? Craft beer is small, annual production of 6 million barrels or less, independent, less than 25% of the craft brewery, owned by a big beer maker, and traditional, down-to-earth ingredients and fermentation. So that's the little lesson on craft beer and why I want to bring craft beer to you if you're used to just drinking Budweiser, Coors Light, and other of the mainstream beers. I want to bring special beers to you that you can enjoy with family and friends. Okay, so we got into craft beer, the meaning of craft beer. What is the meaning of a stout? Well, a stout is a dark beer, and it's made using roasted malt or roasted barley, hops, water, and yeast. That is a stout. Now, the particular stout that we're going to be talking about today from Founders is an oatmeal stout. So an oatmeal stout is a stout with oats added no more than 30% oats during the brewing process. And what oats do to the brewing process is it makes the beer a little bit more bitter. Although you really don't taste the bitterness in a stout. It's a little bit smoother, not like an IPA and India Pale Ale that we've been talking about over the last couple of video casts. And a couple of craft beer terms that you should know. ABV, which stands for alcohol by volume, and IBU, which is International Bittering Units. Now, what do these two terms mean? Simple. The top one, ABV, tells you how strong the beer is. 5%, 6%, 10%. The IBU, the International Bittering Units, tells you how bitter the beer is. So the higher the number, the more bitter the beer is. So let's get started. We're going to talk about Founders Brewing Company. Founders, which is located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Okay, their website, foundersbrewing.com, is created by Mike Stevens and Dave Engbers. Okay, and they have it's a great place to go to. I've never been to it personally. I know a few people that have been there. They have a tap room, brewery hours, all that stuff. Check it out, foundersbrewing.com. And the breakfast stout that we're going to talk about today, Founders Breakfast Stout, it's a seasonal beer. It's brewed with flaked oats, bitter and imported chocolates, and 2 types of coffee. It's got an ABV of 8.3% and IBUs of 60, so it's bitter, but just slightly. It's not too bad, but at 8.3%, you're only going to be able to drink a couple of these before you get a little drunk. All right. So and before I open the bottle and pour, you can follow me Twitter at Al Gattullo. That's ALGATTULLO. Again, Twitter at Al Gattullo. Okay. So here's the breakfast stout. Beautiful bottle. Comes in a 4-pack. You can get it on tap at places, but for the most part, it's mostly on bottle. So we're going to crack this open. There we go. My little handy dandy opener. Now, for stouts, you want to use a glass like this. This is a porter stout glass. And the reason why is you want that head to really be creamy around the glass. You could use a pint glass for a stout. I mean, it works just the same. It's just that the mouth is open a little bit more. So we're going to take our glass, we're going to take our beer, and we're going to pour. And look at that, dark and delicious And you want to tilt it a little bit because you want to get that head rocking and rolling. Now, that, my friends, is a perfect pour for a stout. Look at that head. You see how the head, okay? You see how that just sits there at the top of the glass and doesn't really go down too quick? That's exactly what you want when you're pouring one of these babies. Okay. And, you know, some people like to let the head go down a little bit before they have a sip, but for me, I like to enjoy it with that head there before it goes down a little bit. So we're going to give this a nice little, good little taste. Here we go. Oh. All right. So here's what I get out of this. I get a very cinnamon type flavor from the head. There's a little bit of cinnamon added to the beer. You can really taste the chocolate, especially the bitter chocolate, hence the bitterness to the beer when you sip it. There are two types of chocolate, as I said before. It's bitter and imported chocolates, but you really taste the bitter chocolate in the beer. And again, it's not really bitter. It's much more creamy. The bitterness comes from the chocolate, but the creaminess, it almost feels like you're drinking an iced coffee. That's kind of how I relate this to. Obviously, there's alcohol in it, but it's really, I relate it to an iced coffee. Here, take another sip now. Oh, yeah. You taste a little bit of the coffee, but more so than anything else is two things that I get out of that. I get cinnamon and I get chocolate. I get bitter chocolate. If you're a fan of the dark chocolates and the bitter chocolates, this is definitely the beer for you. You can find it in stores now. If they don't have it, ask for it by name. It's Founders, Breakfast Stout. It's a double chocolate coffee oatmeal stout. I refer to it as an oatmeal stout. Some people would say it's a chocolate stout, but in reality, it's an oatmeal stout. I'm telling you, awesome. It's an ABV of 8.3%, IBUs of 60, so it's a little bitter. It's not as bitter as you think it is. And I would really, if you're gonna drink this type of stout, I would pair this up. If you're looking to pair it up with anything, I don't know. It would go with a little bit of a heartier food, but I really think this pairs well with probably some cheese, maybe even chocolates too. I think you could do chocolates with this, but I don't know if you want to do chocolate with chocolate. But really, this is the perfect type of beer on a nice cold night. You sit back, you pour yourself one of these, and sip it slow, and let it warm up a little bit. It doesn't have to be super cold. That's the other key here. You don't have to make this ice cold, this stout, okay? Let it warm up a little. As it warms up, the darker beers, the more complex the flavor comes out, especially ones that, have bourbon in them or brandy or whatever. The warmer it gets, the better it tastes. But with this, in particular, in this breakfast stout, you want to get it a little warm. I would say have it at about 50 degrees when you serve it. But if it's been in the refrigerator for a while, that's fine. You can crack it, pour it. Let it sit for a couple of minutes before you take that first sip. And I think you'll appreciate the tastes that comes out of it. This is, like I said, Founders. It's one of the best breakfast stouts that's out there. It's one of the best stouts that's out there, by the way. A lot of your gastropubs carry it. I know the guys at Paragon Tap and Table, my favorite place in Clark, New Jersey. I'm sure if you ask for it, they will get it for you. Big shout out to my buddy Mike, the GM over there. Great guy. And, Founders Brewing Company in Michigan. You should go check it out. Foundersbrewing.com is the website. You can get all the information there on their various beers. Now, we need a name for the show as I wrap this up here. We need a name for the show. Here's some of the names. We got Beer and Bacon, The Suds Report, A Pint of Gattullo, Al's Alecast, Suds and Duds, and Good Head with Al. Could use a name. Could use a name for the show than just calling it the boring Al Gattullo Craft Beer Cast. Follow me on Twitter at Al Gattullo. That's at Al Gattullo, ALGATTULLO. We're talking stouts today. Founders Breakfast Stout. Next week, we're going to do a porter, one of my favorites, another seasonal beer from Kona Beer, their pipeline porter. I love it. And again, rare. You can only get it for a couple of months and then it's out of the store. So it's one of those things you have to catch quick before it's gone. But again, if you can, get out there. If you like dark beers, you like bitter chocolate, you like dark chocolate, this is the beer for you. I'm telling you. Founders Breakfast Stout. Check it out. It's cool. You can't miss it. Look, the kid's eating his oatmeal. He's being healthy. All right. We'll talk to you next week, everybody. Thanks for joining me on the Gattullo Craft Beer Videocast.